Okay, little blue light activated. I hope that's some sound. Let's see. Yay, okay, great. Lovely to see you all. That was quite a spiel I gave for no purpose there. I'm glad my attention was finally drawn to the comment section and that I saw what was happening. So there was a long discussion from me about Trump's hotel and the breaking news today that he lost approximately $70 million whilst in office. In a balanced book sense, he was losing money, even though we would all hear stories about the way in which foreign dignitaries and local domestic CEOs would seek to curry favor with Trump by directing revenue towards him, towards his pocketbook, in what is, to me and many other people paying attention, a flagrant violation of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, both the Domestic Emoluments Clause and the Foreign Emoluments Clause section, that says a president should only receive the presidential salary as income and should not be the recipient of income streams either from domestic sources or international sources, specifically for the reason that a president should not be able to have his attention swayed or his determination swayed through people who can purchase his attention or curry favor with him or her through directing money his way. Also, we've got a little pro-Trumpy person who says he donated his salary to charity. He claimed to, but that is also a violation of the Constitution. The president is supposed to receive the presidential salary and only the presidential salary. So you telling me it's okay for him to violate the Constitution because of his claims to have made donations doesn't cut it. That's not how the Constitution works. That's not how the Constitution should work for people who profess to care about it. So yes, overall, Trump made money, but he also lost money because the shenanigans Trump was associated with probably damaged his brand. Definitely damaged his brand. So even though there were lots of corrupt reasons for people to stay at his hotels, lots of corrupt reasons for the CEO of, I don't know, AT&T to purchase rooms for all the executives to stay in for a while. Turns out the overall brand damage to Trump, that's a gamble that didn't pay off very well for him, violating the Emoluments Clause. Oh, pumpkin, I've got a little Trump. I haven't had a little Trump trolley person for a while. Let's not call you a troll straight away. Let's just call you someone who is just going to ignore the comments I made about violating the Constitution, because I guess you don't have anything to add to that. You just accept that he violated the Constitution and you don't care. So he's complaining that I don't see anything I don't like about Biden. Darling, Biden, unlike Trump, hasn't overseen a democidal thrust of effort and negligence against the American public, resulting in hundreds of thousands of deaths. Biden has worked to roll out the vaccine to America, and nevertheless, the most Trump-leaning, Trump-partisan counties are the least vaccinated in the United States, which is a strong reflection of how loyalty to Trump involves damaging the collective health of the United States, damaging the American economy, sabotaging the well-being of families, of communities, of individuals by vaccine refusal, by mask hostility, by social distancing defiance. All of those behaviors are more likely to be engaged in by persistent Trump supporters who haven't even had the common sense to turn away from him when it became evident that he had spent a long time inciting an insurrection and working behind the scenes to encourage various Department of Justice officials to support him in overturning the results of a legitimate election. So I heard on a podcast today that it's from Trump's appearance on a podcast with a discredited journalist who was fired from the Hill for promoting disinformation about Ukraine. What's his name? John Solomon. Okay, Solomon, Solomon, former Washington Post journalist, former Hill journalist, now runs his own podcast, which Trump appeared on yesterday and said the true insurrection is what happened on November the 3rd, because all of Trump's efforts to steal the election didn't succeed. His efforts to appoint a corrupt postmaster general who purposefully slowed down the mail and continues to purposefully slow down the mail didn't work. His efforts to rile people up to say, oh yes, we should just count the votes that come in first. So who's ever won by the end of the evening on the day of November the 3rd, that's it. That's who's won the election, and we should say game over at that point. Knowing that Trump voters were more likely to dismiss the serious severity of COVID, more likely to feel comfortable voting in person, whereas Biden supporters, who were less likely to buy Trump's disinformation about the pandemic and were consequently more likely to take the pandemic seriously and therefore potentially vote safely by mail, he knew those votes would be counted later, even if they were early vote by mail votes, because complicit Republican politicians at the state legislature level had passed legislation to ensure that mail votes were counted after in-person votes on the day of the election, even if those mail-in votes had arrived prior to the day of the election itself. The counting of mail-in votes had to be delayed. Trump had knowingly skewed Trump supporters towards in-person voting by telling the people who listened to him and valued his opinion that mail-in voting was inherently flawed and inherently subject to fraud and inherently dodgy as a method of voting. He did that specifically to try and compel as many Trump supporters as he could to vote in person on the day, be counted first, allow him to declare an early victory, and then either persuade people to stop counting or just get a whole bunch of really angry people who had a strong belief that Trump had already been declared the legitimate winner and that this outcome had then been stolen from their president and stolen from them, and that they would need to do whatever it took to take their country back. Yes, so Goodlatte points out that Trump needs to be indicted and held accountable for his seditious actions. Very true. A lot of people point out on social media nowadays that an insurrection that goes unpunished is merely a training exercise, i.e. would embolden and empower the people who engaged in that seditious and violent behavior in the first place. Yes, so over 140 police officers were injured on the day of the insurrection. The groundwork to the insurrection was John Eastman writing a memo saying, Mike Pence can just assume the authority to overturn the election results and to refuse to count 7 states worth of electors in the Electoral College system. And that was preceded by Jeffrey Clark in the Department of Justice arguing that he should write letters to Republican officials in 7 states to ask them to send an alternate slate of electors to Washington. Pardon me. Anyway, the breaking news is that oopsies, I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to go in a second. But the breaking news is that Trump has lost his bid to claim executive privilege and thereby have the White House not turn over critical documents to the to the January 6th commission. So that's nice because yes, Trump isn't an current executive. He doesn't have executive privilege. It was always going to be a big stretch for him to try and claim that. And the good news is the White House counsel has made that conclusory, has said, yeah, definitely no executive privilege for the former president, trying to hide documents showing the depth and extent of his involvement in an effort to overthrow democracy in the United States. So Kim notes that Hitler was imprisoned for treason, but still came back to commit genocide. Trump must be punished. Trump must be discredited. His enablers must be punished to discourage other enablers. So I'm with you there, guys. Hope you've enjoyed listening, James. I have to go pick up some children from school. And yeah, it's lovely to see you all again. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Goodla. And even thank you, James, for appearing. James also says Trump helped people wake up to corruption. Sure, a lot of people are now much more awake to Trump's corruption than they were previously. A lot of his money laundering activities had gone acknowledged, under investigated, and now some of that deficit is being remedied. So that is a good development. Thanks for reminding me. Take care,